Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Five Things tonight. Nice to have you with us. That beautiful tune was Mr. Jersey's Memorial from the CD Take a Dance from 1991. The band is Bare Necessities, Peter Barnes, Jacqueline Schwab, Mary Lee, Earl Gaddis, and I'm sure you can get that at the CDSS bookstore. So check there if you'd like to pick that tune up. I'd like to welcome you. I am Darlene Hamilton, and we are the Historical Tea and Dance Society. If you open up your chat box, that's an important part of this conversation that we're having tonight. You can type your questions in there. Lindsay is our main person handling things. She'll be making sure everything runs smoothly throughout the evening. And then if you're watching on Facebook, we have Larry Hansen joining us, who's monitoring all the questions there, making sure they get asked and answered. And we also have in Zoom, Renee Turner monitoring from there and grabbing all your questions. Yes, Kara and Todd, I know, but it's listed on the CD as Peter, so I said Peter. Anyway. Continuing on, I knew I was going to get busted on that. Stick around for the after chat posted on our friends page, or you've received it in the email. Thank you, as always, to Karen Axelrod for her concert every Tuesday, a couple hours before this. We really appreciate that. Okay, we're monkeying around with a few things in the background. How do I sound now? Any better? Well, I'll keep talking. Anyway.
You sound the same as when we were testing earlier.
Oh, okay, great. I'm sure it's fine then. Anyway, sometimes things change and shift. I want to thank you all for joining us tonight. I'm sure there are many wonderful people across this country in communities helping make things run and calling and teaching and mentoring and organizing and all that. And I hope that we have more moments to feature many of them. Tonight, I am bringing you one of our own, and I'm very happy to have him with us. He was supposed to call our American Colonial Ball. That was going to be Saturday night. Of course, that didn't happen. So I thought I'd bring him on. That was a good time. We all miss him. James Hutson has been calling Contras and Squares since 1989 and English country dances since 1997. He was a member of the Cal Dance Co-op Board of Directors for a few years. He co-founded the Culver City English Country Dance Series. He's one of the founders of the Los Angeles Playford to the Present Ball and has called it several times. As I said a moment ago, he's been a caller and teacher for numerous special events and festivals, including the Summer Solstice Festival, Camp Sturtevant Contra Dance Weekend, Topanga Banjo and Fiddle Contest Festival, our Moonlight Summer Ball, our American Colonial Ball, and this year in January, he called the Jane Austen Evening, probably the ball that sells out faster than any ball in this country. I think the record time was about 3 minutes and 37 seconds or something like that. So let me welcome James Hutson. Thank you for being with us tonight, James.
Well, you're quite welcome, Darlene. I'm pleased to be here, and I'm so glad you asked me to participate in this Five Things symposium that's been going on. I've been watching all of them through the weeks as they've been held. And when you asked me about this, I started thinking what five things would most characterize my journey through the world of dance. And what occurred to me is this is an English country dance forum, but I do a lot of other kinds of dances. I'm actively involved in several different dance communities, but to me, it's all the same thing. It's all one big world of dance. I call it my unified field theory of social folk dance. So I decided I would organize my five things around five different dance communities that I've been involved with over the years, and they're arranged chronologically with my joining each of these. And so that's my organizing principle for tonight.
That sounds great. All right. Well, let's jump right into the thing one.
Thing one.
Yes, just a minute. Let me bring it up. Finding Community. The subtitle of that, and they all have subtitles, is Contra Dance.
Contra dance, which was the first form of dance that I encountered. Now, I want to start this with a photo for those of you who are shocked by my beard, my isolation and shelter-in-place beard. I want to show a photo from 1984. Lindsay, if you could call up the first photo. That is me on the left. Yes, with a goatee and mustache. I had that for like 15 years. And that is my real hair, back in the days when I had more hair than I have now. But the guy on the right his name is Harvey Dinneroff, and he was the first person to tell me about the existence of Contra dancing. Harvey was an avid Contra dancer himself, and he always tried to get me to go to the dance, and I always said, oh, well, I gave the same excuse all of you have gotten from everybody you've ever asked to come to a dance. Oh, I don't dance. I'm not interested. It's not my blah, 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 blah. And Harvey was never successful in getting me to go to a dance. But the person who was successful in getting me to go to a dance is someone many of you will probably recognize in photo 2. And this is Anita Anderson in 1988, who many of you know. Anita lives in Seattle now, and many of you know her as a member of the band Roguery. But in the 1980s, she had been a copy editor at a publishing company I worked for, so I knew her casually. And in 1986, she said I should come to these dances that she had started playing piano for. So I went to my first Contra dance at a hall that was within easy walking distance where I lived at the time. And I was absolutely befuddled, thoroughly baffled. I had no idea what I was doing, but everybody was so reassuring. Oh, you're doing fine. You're doing fine. And that friendliness, that welcoming atmosphere, it was also a lot of fun. And I came back, and then I came back again. But what kept me coming back wasn't so much the patterns. Eventually I did figure out how dances worked and all of that. But what really kept me coming back was that friendliness and that welcoming attitude. And that caused me to return again and again. And for a while I just went to the dance that was near where I lived. But after a while I started branching out, going to other dances in the Los Angeles area. I would see a lot of the same people there. They were the regulars. And then I realized, well, they're seeing me all the time, so I must be a regular too by now. And it wasn't long before people who were newer dancers than I would say, oh, you're doing fine, reassuring them the same way I was reassured. And the dancing itself was a lot of fun because it was the programs. There was a lot of variety on the programs. There would be, besides Contra programs were different than they are today. Besides long ways Contras, you might have a couple of squares, depending on who the caller was, maybe a circle mixer, certainly a couple of waltzes, and then this challenging dance during the break that had the mysterious name Hombo. Ooh. But a lot of variety in the dance back in those days, and I really enjoyed that.
James, how do you feel about it now when you go to a Contra dance? It's mostly a lot of long lines and swinging, because that's lots of fun.
And it is, and the scene has definitely changed, and I lament that the programs are more restrictive now than they were back then. But I remember something that was said by Ted Sanella, one of the great Contra callers. I did a callers workshop with him in 1990, and I'm going to talk more about that later. But he said something at that time that I didn't fully appreciate. He said, today's style will be out of date tomorrow. And he certainly was someone in his some 40, 50-year career. He saw a lot of styles come and go in Contra dancing. What I didn't realize is that the style I was enjoying right then, that would also go out of date. there's been 2 or 3 shifts in style just since then. Um, and I might add, by the way, all you English country dancers out there, English country dance is not exempt from this. The English country dancing we do today is very far removed from what Mary Judson would have taught in the 1960s, for example. Because in the 1970s, Pat Shaw came to Pine Woods and everything changed. And in the 1980s, Bare Necessities, whom we heard in the intro, they started playing the music a lot more lyrically than it had been played before. And everything changed. And so everything changes all the time. So I guess what I have to, the only advice I can give is it pays to be flexible. And if I lament the variety that's in the dance today, I do say that by dancing in a lot of different communities, I'm making my own variety by doing it that way. And to a certain extent, that actually was maybe true in the 80s when I started, because everybody I met at a Contra dance in the 1980s, the people who attended those dances, most of them, they did Contra dancing and they did something else. And that something else could be dance related, could be folk related, could be just physical activity related. And they were all trying to recruit me to come to their other event. Oh, you should come to the International Folk Dance. You should come to the Sierra Club hikes. You should come to the Santa Monica Folk Club singing circle. You should come to the English country dance. You should come to the Scandinavian dance class and learn how to do the hombo.
And that leads right into thing 2, doesn't it?
Oh, yes, it does.
All right, thing 2. Learning how to dance.
Yes, the Scandinavian dance. So I Contra dances, you don't really learn how to dance at a Contra dance because they're not set up that way. So I didn't get my dance skills there. I got my dance skills by going to the Scandinavian dance class. And there were a lot of teachers over the years who taught the Scandinavian dances. But there's one teacher who had particular influence on me, and his name was Jim Kahn. And he had a style of teaching that was radically different from what everyone else. All the other Scandia teachers, what they said was, these dances are very difficult to master, and you need to practice a lot to become proficient at them. And Jim took the exact opposite approach. He said, Scandinavian Polska turns, that's simple. Left, right, both left, right, whatever the sequence is. The steps are really simple. And it's easy, and it's easy. Anybody can do it if you follow certain practices, certain basic principles. And Jim, in his own unique way, presented these principles in the form of koans. Does anybody know what a koan is? I will explain. A koan, it's a tool of Zen philosophy where a paradox or a seemingly self-contradictory statement challenges your preconceptions and then reveals a truth. So what is the sound of one hand clapping? What does that mean? Well, that's an example of an actual koan. So Jim came up with a whole series of about a dozen or so koans for Scandinavian dancers. Well, let's look at image number 1 here, image 2-1. And he presented these to the dancers, and this is a list probably of his 10 most basic koans. I wanted you to see this. And I'm not going to cover all 10 of these, but I do want to mention a couple of them. For example, koan number 1, dancing is walking. What does that mean? Well, it means that dancing is not some artificial movement you impose upon your body. It's an extension of your own natural body movement. So the purpose of that koan is to get people to relax and move naturally and not try to force something, which is very good. And number 2, the circle of support. Now that's what ballroom dancers call the frame. Okay, so you hold your partner in your arms, whether it's ballroom hold or polska hold or shoulder hold, whatever. A strong frame. The paradox in that koan is footwork is not dancing. The feet just propel you around the floor. All the dancing happens from the waist up. So making that strong connection with your partner and then flexing your knees to lower your center of gravity and give you more stability, that was Those are the principles that will help you do those turning polska turns and hombo turns in the Scandia dances. And once I got those, a funny thing happened. I went back to my Contra dancing, the other dance that I did, and people started complimenting me on my smooth swings. And it's like, oh, I'm learning something over here, and it's carrying over onto here. And I, you know, everything is connected to everything else. It's all related. So there's one more koan that was on that list, and you don't have to post the list again, but I'll just tell you, it was number 7. It said, Tourdance is people. You might have seen that when it was on the screen. And so what's the word tourdance? Well, it's a Swedish word. It means figure dance. It's when you're dancing a pattern around other people or another couple, which essentially, it's what we do. It's what English country dancing is. It's a set of figures. And contra dancing and square dancing and Scottish dancing and Morris dancing. It's all, you're dancing figures. You're dancing a pattern. But the koan is, the paradox, the people are more important than the patterns. The patterns are not the important part. It's the people. And here's what that means. And I can use a good example from an English country dance figure. So let's say you're dancing a figure 8. And a lot of folk dance teachers, if they're teaching that figure, they'll say, a figure 8, you're dancing a pattern of the figure of 8 on the floor. So that's how a lot of teachers explain it. But if you say it that way, especially to brand new dancers, they're going to look at the floor. You just told them to look at the floor. And they're not looking at the people that they're dancing with. So that is not efficacious as far as I'm concerned. To me, the best way to teach a figure 8, you go between that couple and around this person, go between them again around the other person, you end up where you start. That's a figure 8. I almost never tell them what that pattern is. It's just, this is what we call a figure 8. And an even better example, okay? Hey for 3, hey for 4. These are common figures in English country dancing. But you may not know that the hey for 4, which shows up in a lot of contra dances today, it was unknown in the world of contra dancing until 1975, when Ted Sanella, there's that name again, borrowed the hey for 4 from English country dancing, put it into a contra dance called Bonnie Jean, and he introduced that figure. Now, when I started dancing in 86, the hey was still a new enough figure that nobody had figured out the best way to teach it yet. So when I started dancing, callers were explaining a hey by saying, it's a figure 8 with an extra loop in the middle. That was not helpful. That was not helpful. Eventually, the callers of that era, and I wasn't calling yet, so I can't say that I participated in this, but people figured out, actually, the best way to teach a hey is to relate it to the people you're dancing with. So it's a weaving figure, and you pass the first person by right shoulder, and the next person by left shoulder, and the next person by right shoulder, and then you loop around to the right. And it seems like that's a lot of teaching, but it's actually the most efficient way to explain a hey. You relate to the people. It's not the pattern. It's the people. By the way, have you ever wondered why we say pass right shoulders instead of pass right hips? Pass the right side. Sometimes you'll hear me say, one's cross by right and pass right, and whatever. Yeah, but right shoulder, why do we say shoulder? It's because the shoulder is next to the face. And so when you look at someone's shoulder, you will see their face. And they're probably smiling at you, and they're probably friendly. And this affects the attitude you bring to the dance. A choice of an individual word can affect the way people dance. And as a dancer, that may or may not be useful to you, but that is certainly a useful thing to know if you want to be a caller. I think we're ready for thing 3.
I think we're just going right into it. That sounds good. Thing 3, learning how to call. Old time
Old
square
time
dance.
square dance. Yes. Well,
This guy does
um,
it all.
well, well. First off, I want to. There's one person I absolutely have to acknowledge, and Lindsay, if you could call up photo thing 3, photo 1. The person who was responsible for getting me to call was Lita Shapiro. Here's a photo of Lita and Steve Shapiro, circa 2003. She herself hadn't been calling for all that long, but she was running some callers workshops. She knew the importance of encouraging new people to call, and she thought I should come to this callers workshop that she was running. And you know what I said to Lita? I said to Lita exactly the same thing that I had said to Harvey Dinneroff. No, I'm not interested in calling. If I'm up on stage, I'm not dancing. I want to dance. I want to dance. So I didn't go to that workshop. You know who did go to that workshop? 1988? Susan Michaels. And she became one of the best callers on the West Coast. So she has one more year experience than me because I went to Lita's workshop the next year, 1989. And Lita also gave me opportunities to call guest slots on her programs and so forth. So, you know, I really have to acknowledge Lita as the person who got me started calling. But I also went to workshops, and I mentioned earlier, I went in 1990, I went all the way across the country to Pine Woods American Week. And that week there were 2 caller workshop sessions being held during the week. One was a Contra callers workshop led by Ted Sanella, and the other was a square dance callers workshop led by Larry Edelman. And I have to say, the principles that I use in calling most of the time, a lot of those came from Larry and his square dance workshops. I went to his square dance workshops several times. He came out here a few times. I went to Pine Woods that time. Let's call up image thing 3, image 2. This is the cover of the Square Dance Callers Workshop outline that I bought. And the most recent version of this may also be available at the CDSS store. I haven't checked lately. This is the version from 1990 that I bought. And it has a lot of the principles that I use. In fact, here is that book. And it's got a lot of, yeah, all the tips. You saw that, right? So a few of the things that I learned from Larry. I learned how to improvise. I learned how to watch the floor. That's important. I learned how to teach from a dancer's point of view. But probably one of the most important things that I got from Larry, one of the most important statements is he said, it's very important to have goals. When you're planning a program, you want to achieve something. You want to have a goal. And Larry said when you're planning out a program, you need to ask 3 questions. You need to ask all 3 questions, and you have to ask them in this order. And the first question is, what can the dancers do? And the second question is, what do they want to do? And the third question is, what do I want them to do? So the first question deals with their abilities. You want to choose dances that are appropriate for the people you have on the floor. That's a fairly basic thing, and that's why that's the first question. You have to make sure you cater that. Second question, what do they want to do? That's the dancer expectations. They came to the dance. They paid their money. They came in. They want you to give them a good time. So you see to it that you give them what they are looking for. Okay, fine. The third question has to do with your goals. What do you want? What do you want the dancers to do? If you want dancers to behave in a certain way, you should choose dances that reward that behavior. So if you want dancers to be, if what you're looking for is strong partnering, let me put this in an English country dance context, since there's mostly English country dancers out there. Some dancers are very neighborly, and some dances are very partnerly. Yeah, I made that word up. And some dances are equal between neighbors and partners. So a dance like Mulberry Garden, you're more than halfway through the dance before you even recognize the fact that you've got a neighbor. That's a very partner-centric dance. On the other hand, Indian Queen, you're more than halfway through the dance before you do anything with your partner. It's all corner action up to that point. And then there's a dance like Child Grove, where you do this with your partner, then you do this with your neighbor, then you do something with your neighbor, then you do that with your partner, and it's a lot of back and forth between neighbor and partner. And as a programmer, I want to be aware, if you want to encourage strong partnering skills, you choose a partner-oriented dance. If you want more interaction, more mixing with a lot of different people on the floor, you choose a more neighbor-oriented dance. But you will have this goal of what you want the dancers to do. If you want dancers to be able to do a hand turn in 8 counts that goes 1.5 around, you do a dance of that nature. So,
James, you were going to tell us about one of your other mentors, Harry.
oh yes, let's call up photo 3, thing 3, photo 3. I mentioned that Larry had been, he had called at New Year's Camp Hess Kramer, run by CTMS. This was in 1988, sitting around the breakfast table. I'm third from the left in the green shirt. On the far right in the plaid shirt, that's Harry Browser. He was the caller for the local dance in Westwood that was my local dance within walking distance. And he was something of a mentor. He had one piece of advice when he learned I was about to become a caller. He said, I want to tell you this. When you get up on stage that first time, no matter what you expect it's going to be like, it's going to be different. And I went, huh? I had no idea what he was talking about. But I went and I called my first dance. I had prepared my notes. I knew how I was going to teach it. The dancers were in front of me. I was all set. And just as I stepped to the mic and I'm about to start the walkthrough, I hear this little voice behind me saying, "What kind of tunes do you want for this?" Musicians? I have to talk to musicians? It never occurred to me. I was so focused on the dance, it never occurred to me, of course, you have to deal with musicians. I think it's time for thing 4.
I think it leads right into thing 4. Thing 4, connecting to the music, English country dance.
Yes, English country dance is going to be coming into this eventually, so be patient, be patient. This is the order in which I encountered all of these. I did do some English country dancing when I first started, but that series eventually went away, and then we didn't have any. But to talk about the music, now the music, of course, the music drives the dance. The dancers get their energy from the music. And actually, can we talk? Here's a little secret. The musicians get their energy from the dancers. That comes back to them. They give it back to the dancers. It's a loop. It's a loop. And as a caller, my job is to connect the dancers to the music, get that loop going, and then get out of the way. So the California Dance Cooperative requires live music at all their events. So I got to meet a lot of musicians. And getting to know these people have really enriched my life. Let's call up thing 4, photo 1. And we'll see 3 of the best dance musicians in Southern California playing at the 2002 Southern California Ball. That's David James on the mandolin, Linda Kodaira on the violin, and Jeff Sparrow on the keyboard. And all 3 of them are still playing with us today, but this is what they looked like 18 years ago. It is so wonderful to get to know musicians. And I recommend that if you're at a dance and there's live music, well, you can't talk to them while they're playing, obviously, but during the break, they come off the stage, they're eating their refreshments. Talk to musicians, get to know them. They're wonderful people, and as I say, it's really nice to know people who are that talented as opposed to, say, me. I should say the best dance musicians are those who also dance themselves. I've long had this motto: every musician should learn how to dance. Every dancer should learn how to call. every caller should learn how to play music. You should connect with all of the pieces of this because they all fit together. They all fit together, of course. Everything's connected to everything else. As for my own musical abilities, well, let's look at thing 4, photo 2. I took accordion lessons as a child and didn't touch that instrument for decades. But as soon as I got involved in contra dance, square dance, English country dance, Scandinavian dance, I wanted to play accordion. I wanted to get involved with the music. So I went to the California Traditional Music Society Summer Solstice Festival. On the consignment table, they had an accordion. I snatched it up, and I was able to play right away. It's like riding a bicycle, the proverbial, you pick it up right away. At first, I started playing for dances. The Scandia dances at first because the schottisches and waltzes and hombos are slower and easier to play. But that was playing solo. But what I really liked was sitting in the open band for the contra dances and got to play with the whole ensemble. That's why people like to play in bands. They like to play in open bands. And soon I was playing for English country dance as well. So English is starting to enter the picture. I'm going to jump ahead with photo 2, thing 4, photo 2. No, we just did thing 4, photo 2. This is thing 4, photo 3. Okay, here I am teaching a workshop at the Summer Solstice Festival in the year 2002. Obviously, I have mistaken the microphone for an ice cream cone, and I'm nibbling away at it. But when I looked at this photo more closely, I thought, I have my back to the dancers. Not only do I have my back to the dancers, I am walking away from them. And I have my eyes closed. Don't try this at home, kids. This is not what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to keep an eye on the dancers, okay? And obviously it's at a point where I think the dancers can continue. They don't need me to call, but I'm obviously still calling. I would never today think of, turning away from the dancers but continuing to call. No, I would never do that, would I? No. Sit down, Annie. Now, I want to say something about CTMS, the Summer Solstice Festival. This was a major music festival, but it wasn't just that. It was the Summer Solstice folk music, dance, and storytelling festival. So it was multidisciplinary. And it was a teaching festival where you could go to learn to play your instrument, or you could sing a song or do a dance, and crossing over to other disciplines was not only allowed, it was encouraged. And this kind of cross-disciplinary festival was a boon to our community, to the whole folk community, where everybody came together and sampled everybody else's things. And again, I love the variety. And it's a shame that the festival was unable to survive more than a few years past the death of its founder, Elaine Weissman. She kept it going for many years, but I really miss the Summer Solstice Festival. It's too bad we don't have anything like that today, but I wanted to acknowledge the role it played in our folk community. So let's get back to English country dance. So as I say, in the mid-90s, there was no English country dance, and then this guy moves down from the Bay Area who was an avid English country dance. Born in Italy, his name is Giovanni De Amici, and he looked around and finding no English country dancing in Southern California, decided he would start a series. He got a new job down at the tech place down in Torrance, which is kind of a little tucked away, out of the way place in the southern Los Angeles County, for those of you unfamiliar with the geography. And he started this series. He asked around, who are the musicians I should hire? He asked me, who would I recommend to be the caller for his series? And I said, I would recommend me. Because by that point, I've been calling for several years, and I was ready to move on. I'd done a few guest slots at the Old English series, and I was ready to add to my repertoire. And he took a chance on me. I'm very grateful. He got me started calling English country, and the first thing I did that summer of '97, I headed back to Pinewoods for the second time. Only this time I went to English American Week in order to bone up on what dances I would want to teach in Torrance. English American Week. And you might be asking, well, English, why didn't you go to English Week? I figured English Week was more for the hardcore English dancers. That wasn't the kind of crowd I was going to get in Torrance. We were going to have to basically build a community from scratch. And I figured English American Week will be more casual English dancers. And so I knew that's where I would get the dances. And there was one session taught that week. It was called English for All. And it was exactly, good, accessible, but still interesting dances that anybody could do. It was exactly what I was looking for. That session was led by Brad Foster.
And he's in the audience.
Hi, Brad. Well, Brad, you probably never even realized that the dances you called at that session, English for All in 1997, became the core repertoire for the brand new Torrance English Country Dance. Those were the dances I brought back home, and that became our core repertoire for several years. So I'm grateful to you, Brad, for introducing a lot of those dances, adding those to my repertoire. Having talked a little bit about the Torrance series, I should show the next photo, which shows you some of the people who were involved with this series. So if we could have Thing 4, Photo 4. This was taken at the first ever Jane Austen Ball in Pasadena, California, Troop Church, in the year 2000. So left to right, there's me, Annie Lasky, Giovanni De Amici, Marsden and Bruce McCrae, who now live in Las Vegas, and they're active in the scene there, and Sharon Spurlock, Ivan Botlick, Charlotte Gould. The photo was taken by someone else who was a regular in Torrance, driving all the way from Riverside to Torrance on a Thursday night to English Country Dance, and that was Judy Pronovost. So as I say, although the series was in Torrance, Giovanni was the only one who actually lived in Torrance. Everybody else had to travel from wherever they lived to get there. And sorry for the geography for those of you who are not familiar with the area, but people drive all over the place around here. It was at that ball, that Jane Austen ball, that Giovanni and I we decided the success of that ball told us that there was probably enough of a constituency that we could create our own Southern California Playford Ball. Make an actual real Playford Ball rather than the Regency ball that we had just been to. And so we agreed we would do that, and in the summer of 2001 came the first Southern California Playford Ball. I was the dance leader. Giovanni was the producer, and it was a big success. And that ball still goes on today under the name Playford to the Present, and I'll explain how that came about a little bit later. The second year of that ball, Giovanni himself was the dance leader. I was no longer the sole caller, calling 2 nights a week and running 2 Contra dances. It was a bit much for me. But Giovanni stepped up. He started calling dances. And then I mentioned Annie Lasky, who was in that photo. She had encountered English country dance at Renaissance Fair many years earlier. She discovered the Torrance series. She was also good material to be a caller, and she started calling dances as well. So here is a photo of Annie teaching a dance in Poway, which is near San Diego. It's about a 3-hour drive south of here, in 2006. The Poway series usually used recorded music, but in this case, Annie wanted to have live music, so the next photo shows what she did in the way of live music for this dance in Poway. And it's coming up. That was our live music. Yes, it's me on the accordion, staring into my Barnes book where the cover has come off. Now, to get to, as I say, it's like a 2 or 3 hour drive down there. So Annie and I would drive down there, and on the drive down, we would talk about dance, about different kinds of dances, about dance communities, different dance sequences. On the drive back, we would critique, well, how did it go? That dance went over well. This wasn't so good. Maybe I should have done it this way. And a lot of back and forth between the two of us, not just for that gig, but on a lot of trips when we went to dances that other people were calling. And it was in those conversations. Annie was a new caller at the time. I was an experienced caller, but new to English. So we were actually helping each other learn and grow. And those were very formative experiences for our respective careers as callers. So ultimately, in 2006, Annie and I decided to start our own series closer to where a lot of the dancers lived, on the west side of Los Angeles. And we found a hall in Culver City, and we started the Culver City series in January of 2006. The next photo thing 4, photo 7, is a group photo taken in Culver City in 2015. So this is, 9 years into the series. The band in front is World Peas, Patty McCollum, Bob Altman, and David James again. They're all seated. I'm directly above Bob Altman with a pot of flowers behind my head, and Annie is to the right of Bob Altman wearing the blue top. So this is our, and this was what the hall looked like in 2015. They've repainted it. It's used as a daycare center during the week, and the garish, that's why the garish colors. And now it's mostly pastels. They've repainted it. So this series, it was very important for Annie and I when we started this series to come up with a vision statement. Now remember, earlier I was talking about Larry Edelman saying we needed to have goals for our dance. Goals are important. Not just programming goals, but even having a series, having a goal, having a vision. Annie was also influenced by having served on the CDSS board for about a year and seeing other organizations and how they operated. It was very important for us to make a formal statement of what we wanted our dance to be. The character of your series is determined by the decisions you make. And if you may think that you're running a dance and you don't have a vision, you don't have a goal. No, you do. Whether you've consciously created one or not, the decisions you have made up until now have created the character of your series. I think it's better if you consciously have a vision. And what we wanted was a community that was, and I have it written down here, vibrant, welcoming, and inclusive. In other words, I wanted the Contra dance to be, I wanted the English country dance to be like the Contra dance was when I first started there. Oh, you're doing fine. So having name badges by the door so people can write their name and put the badge on. Encouraging the experienced dancers to be dance angels to introduce people to the dance. These are all important things, important goals. And we wanted an open, inviting atmosphere, yes.
Sounds like that leads back to those koans and how important they were.
Yes.
I think we might have a question. I'm jumping the gun a little bit, but I know you're about to lead into the next thing. And
yes.
So I thought I'd stop you and see if we can get that question up. So just give us one quick second. Is it okay with you, James, if we post that image of the koans?
Oh, yes. In fact,
because that's a great.
We can do that. In fact, I sent Lindsay and you a PDF file of those koans, and feel free to distribute that. Great. I'm sure Jim Kahn wouldn't mind. He published those koans in a number of different places, folk dance publications, and so forth. And I just basically gathered them all up and put them on a single page. So that, and if anybody has a question about a koan, let me know. Jim Kahn, by the way, now lives in Portland. He went to Reed College. I think he's retired, and I've seen him. Okay, so we got a question?
We do.
Yes.
Hey, get me off mute. There we go. Hi. I was wondering, when you were saying that you went down the Poway, was that before Ellen Riley started her dance? Was it during that time? Because of the Poway, wait a minute. What's the timeline here?
I sense
very
a
curious.
synthesis here somewhere.
Ah, yes. Well, it's interesting that that's an excellent question because about the time Giovanni started his series in '97, I think it was maybe a year later that Ellen Riley started the series in Poway, and just a few months after that, Gary Shapiro started an English country dance series in Santa Barbara. So it's like after being an English country dance desert for like 5 years, suddenly there were the three major metropolitan areas in Southern California each had an English country dance going on. So yes, those photos you saw in Poway, David Jacobson took those photos. That was the dance center in the shopping center that you guys would probably remember. I don't remember the name of it, but yes. But a good question. Yes, Ellen had started that series for quite some time, and then of course, we talked about. But the other thing I was going to get to the ball. Can I say something about that, or did I answer your question? Okay, good.
Thank you.
So I wanted to say something about the Southern California Ball. So Giovanni ended his series in Torrance in 2007 because he got involved in other activities and he has since moved out of the area. But Culver City kept going, and the Culver City series took over management of that annual English Country Dance Ball, and that's when it got relabeled as Playford to the Present. And to this day, it's still the Culver City series that runs it. I might also add that Annie and I are no longer officially connected. I'm listed as a consultant these days. And there is a committee that runs the Culver City series and a committee that runs the Playford to Present Ball. And
I think we have another question too.
okay, good.
Hey, there's a familiar face.
Oh, hey, Dan.
Hi, James. You were talking about the variety of things kind of diminishing in several of the dance styles that you're very familiar with. So have you found that to be true in English country dance? And if so, how?
Yeah, it's a good question. That's a really good question. English country dance, by its very nature, has more complexity in its dances, than contra dances. Contra dances tend to be rather simple. And so there are some complex contra and there's some simple English, but generally speaking, the English dances are more challenging. And the main change I've seen in English country dance is the profusion of new dances being written and a lot of new figures being introduced as well. Until about, what was it, 10 years ago, the Dolphin Hay existed in one dance, Mary Devlin's Halsey Manners. And now I'm seeing Dolphin Hays all over the place. And a lot of people who are writing new English country dances, and that's a good thing because it's a living tradition. That's what living traditions are all about. But a lot of people who are writing this are Americans. And I wonder, now there are still English people writing dances. Colin Hume, who's going to be on a Saturday talk here for the historical Tina Dance Society, he's still writing dances. There's plenty of dances from English, but I'm seeing more and more Americans writing English style dances and a huge profusion of dances entering the repertoire. So that's the main thing, looking at the English dance scene today versus 10 years ago or 20 years ago. There's dances we did back then that we're hardly doing today because all the new material is pushing it out. But as far as
so that would seem like more variety to me. I mean, you would be losing things would be filtering off, but you have more variety with all of these new dancers and these young choreographers. And
more variety and new figures being introduced. which adds a little bit of variety, and the English dance, and variety of formations, variety of musical styles. There's always been a lot more variety in English than in Contra, and
That's what I've always.
Contra has just become more focused
Yeah.
on just the core of what they do. Yes. Does that answer your question?
It does. Thank you, James. I'm enjoying this tremendously.
You're welcome.
It's great having you with us. It's nice to have one of our own here. Yes. It sounds like that's a good time, speaking of more variety, to lead into thing 5.
Ah, yes.
What do you think?
Let's do it.
All right. Thing 5, new communities. Hey, that's us, historical dance and etceteras.
That's right. That's right. So I'm involved in all these other forms of dance, and in recent years, Darlene and her group, the Historical Tea and Dance Society, have asked me to lead some of their balls and special events, and I'm happy to do so. This is a new challenge for me. So I'm still expanding. I mean, what do I know about the structure of an 18th century cotillion, or how to do a rigadoon step? I mean, but it's important to expand your horizons and continue to grow and learn, and that's the opportunity that Historical Tea and Dance have accorded me. Where are we at for time? Can we run the first video?
Absolutely. We want to see this video.
Swing this one. Gentlemen, go that column with a 1, 2, 3, and balance. And swing your own. Couple 2, solo. Couple 2, promenade, the inside of the set. Crossover, 2, split the 4.
All right, that's enough of that. The dance is the La Rousse quadrille, which some of you may recognize. This was at the Moonlight Summer Ball in 2017, outdoors in a park under the lights, and it was a wonderful time, and I really enjoyed putting that program together and running that. And so let's look at photo 5.2. Yes, this is my colonial ball costume. And every time I reference Paul Revere and the Raiders, nobody under 60 knows what I'm talking about. But in 2019, I did the colonial ball. That was last year, and I would have done it this year, as Darlene said. And to do that ball, it required more research and preparation than I usually do for an English country dance program. For one thing, okay, so it's American colonial, so I wanted to do only historical dances. I wanted to do historical dances that were cited in American sources, and Robert Keller's American Dance Database, which is online, was a big help in helping me do that. And HTDS dancers like to look at videos of the dances before they go to the ball. So I had to find dances with useful videos. Not every dance that has a video has a useful video. And so I had a limited palette from which I still had to construct a balanced program. So that's where the challenge is for me. And I think I succeeded. Everybody seemed to enjoy the program, and I was looking forward to doing a new, slightly different program this year, but we'll still do it. And then there's the most recent historical dance I did is going all the way back. Remember that Jane Austen ball in 2000? That's been more or less going through all the years. And I was invited to lead what they now call the Jane Austen Evening in January of this year, and that was even more of a challenge because that that dance, that ball, has built up a number of traditions over the years, not all of which I was familiar with, and I had to kind of learn along the way. But especially for a Jane Austen era dance, and some of you can appreciate that, finding period appropriate long waist dances that didn't end with down the center and back and cast off and right and left. It's like 90% of the dances end that way. So how can I get any variety in the program? It did work. What helped me out on that is remembering Larry Edelman's 3 questions. See, even a square dance caller teacher gives me a tool I can use for putting together a Jane Austen ball. So the 3 questions. Number 1, what can the dancers do? The dances had to be accessible. A lot of the people who come to this ball only dance once a year. So they had to be easy enough for people who only dance once a year to be able to pick them up and be able to do them. Number 2, what do the dancers want to do? They want to have fun. The dances have to be fun. They have to be interesting. They have to be appealing. And number 3, what do I want them to do? So I want to encourage the participants to be better dancers than they are.
And I have to say, I'm going to interrupt here.
Go
I have
ahead.
to say that I can absolutely say that we had more dancers come out and start coming to your dance class regularly after your ball this year than I've ever noticed before. So it was really great. I am going to jump us ahead to that other great video we have.
Yes.
We're running short on time. And I love this video, and I think you all will too. And it's not us, but it's, another great community that James calls with.
Yes. So there's 2 communities kind of overlapping in this video. There's the traditional square dance series that's held in Highland Park, and there's a new Contra dance series called California Twirl, which is gender free. So in this video, I am calling traditional square dance figures in a scatter formation to an old-timey band that plays for the square dance series, but it's at the California Twirl series, and I'm using Larks and Robbins terminology. So this is, again, everything overlaps with everything else. Let's look at this video. I think you'll find everybody had a lot of fun. Oh yes, I had forgotten one guy had his hat knocked off trying to make the basket. That was a lot of fun. Yeah, and that California Twirl series, we talk about having a vision, having a mission. California Twirl definitely has a mission. It's a mission of inclusiveness. And both of these series, the Square Dance series and the California Twirl, attract a lot of younger dancers, younger than me anyway, with the old gray beard. But dancers in their 20s and 30s, and it's just wonderful to see the energy that all of those dancers bring to the dance.
That was great, James. There are a few other things we're going to talk about, but we're going to save them for the after talk. So stick around. Larry and Renee are going to post the details for getting into the after talk now, so you have them ahead of time. You all know by now it doesn't start until this one ends, and there's still a little more housekeeping to do with this one. So we're going to take all the other questions in the after talk, so just hold on to them. You're going to see what James really has in that little book. In the after talk, that should entice the locals to come because everybody knows that he's got that book on him every place he goes. So we will see that there. James, you've got so many different dance communities. What's your favorite dance?
Ah, well, 5 different communities, so of course I have to name 5 different dances. I'm just going to name them real quick because we're running low on time. I can justify each one of these, but you can ask me about them later. Favorite Contra dance, Hull's Victory, the zesty version. Favorite Scandinavian dance, Busserul, which is the duple meter version of Roraspuls. Favorite square dance, Forward, Six, and Back. Lots of versions of that, and I love them all. Favorite English dance, I'm going to go with Mr. Jersey's Memorial, which we heard at the beginning. And historical dance, well, a dance that shows up every year on the Jane Austen evening program, even though it's out of period, but we love it anyway, Prince William.
That's a great list of dances. So, James, I know you wanted to say something at the very end, but before we have you do that, I'm going to say thank you to you for coming on. We really appreciate it. We know you spent a lot of time thinking about this, and you've been such a great gift to our community and a mentor and a teacher. He ran a more than one callers workshop in this area. So, you know, James is our guy, our elder, not by age, but by elder in wisdom. So we would like to thank Lindsay Verbal for all her work on the 5 things. And in the background, Renee Turner on Zoom and Larry Hansen on Facebook. The After Talk link is posted here in Zoom. It is posted in Facebook in the chat and should be posted on our friends page. Coming up next Tuesday, we have Paul Ross, caller, dancer, mentor, preserver of the Friet de Mertz Herman legacy, founder of the Lennox Assembly, creator of the marvelous YouTube channel Child Grove. If you have not been there, go. You've probably used these videos and much more. This Saturday, our low impact historical footwork 101 class starts again, and there are still a few spaces left. Check the chat box for a link. If you are capable of doing a 102 level dance class, we're also starting that this Saturday. Please contact us. You'll need to pre-qualify for that. And as James said earlier, on our 3rd Saturday historical dance web chat this month is Colin Hume, live from England. It's 10 in the morning in Pacific time. We're really looking forward to that. And for those of you who are waiting for Garth Nutley and Paul Cooper, they are coming back. They are going to be here, hopefully in August. So don't worry. James, you had a closing epilogue.
A closing statement, yes.
Yeah.
Well, I hope I've communicated my vision of unity in all these different dance formats, my unified field theory, as I call it. I wanted to say I would rather connect things than separate them, and I'd rather build bridges than erect barriers. And so I chose as my play-out music a song by one of my favorite performers, Bill Staines, and it's his song called Bridges. Listen to the words. Thank you, Darlene, for having me on here. It's been a real pleasure. I look forward to seeing all of you in the after chat.
We're looking forward to it too. We will put up one quick photo, I think, and then we'll put up the donation screen. And then in about 2 minutes, we'll have the after chat going. And yes, I made a mistake. Oh, I made a mistake. The historical footwork class does not start on July 3rd. It starts on July 11th. So my bad. Nobody caught it before now, and I certainly didn't. So yes. And we're going to show that wonderful picture of James and his dear friend Bonnie. And then we're going to go into the donation screen because it's such a great picture. So see y'all in 2 minutes.
All right.
Such a wonderful picture. And he's wearing a tie.
And a trilby. And a trilby.
bridges, bridges in the sky, they are shining in the sun. They are stone and steel and wood and wire, they can change two things to one. They are languages and letters, they are poetry and all. They are love and understanding, and they're better than all. They are languages and letters, they are poetry and all. They are love and understanding, and they're better than all. There are canyons, they are yawning in the night. They are rank and bitter anger, and they are all devoid of light. They are fear and blind suspicion, they are apathy and pride. They are dark and so foreboding, and they're oh so very wide. They are fear and blind suspicion, they are apathy and pride. They are dark and so foreboding.